Welcome to the introduction of our training video. And in this section I want to talk about a few points that's going to make it a lot easier for you to view the training videos. Now the training videos were created using a special type of screen capture software that records my computer screen to an AVI or video file on my hard drive, and then with special effects and editing I've created a video that plays back off your DVD-ROM. Now first of all, if you're having problems playing back the training videos, you can hear the audio but the video's jerky, it could indicate that your DVD drive, your DVD player, isn't keeping up with all the information that's flowing down the pipe. So here and now I give you permission to make a personal copy to your hard drive of everything that is on the DVD drive, and that should play back fine if you're experiencing problems coming off the disk. So first of all, if you're viewing this video and your computer screen is set to 640 by 480 or 800 by 600, then you've probably got scroll bars on the right and bottom side of your screen. A quick way to check that is to right-click on your computer desktop anywhere, go to Properties, come over to the tab that says Settings, and then down here in the middle left you can see it says Screen Resolution, and you can see that my computer screen is set to 1024 by 768. Now perhaps some of you don't like to set it that large because it makes everything smaller to read, but I prefer to do it this way because it gives me much sharper images for the training videos. Alright, so first of all let me ask you, if you would, to set your screen resolution to 1024 by 768. How do you do that again? You right click on your desktop, doesn't matter where, go to Properties, go to Settings, and then change the slider here so that it reads 1024 by 768 or larger. And that way you'll be able to see the videos in full screen. Let's go ahead and play one of the videos and see what we're talking about. I'm going to push the DVD-ROM into my drive tray. Here's a menu. This is probably not what you're looking at because this is an older menu. This is a working copy. And if I click on Computer Setup, well, welcome to the introduction of our training video. In this section, so there's a training video playing back on my computer screen full screen. However, if you haven't changed your screen to 1024 by 768 yet, then you're probably seeing scroll bars again on the top and the bottom, and you may be seeing some information, buttons and such going across the top. And those buttons and scroll bars going across the top are the play controls or the navigation controls. Again, I'm watching this video. This is the training video sitting here on my desktop. I'm looking at it in full screen. If I hit my escape button, now I'm looking at scroll bars on the right side and the bottom, which allows me to scroll the picture up and down. So you can see there's scroll up and down, left and right. And then across the top here I've got play, stop, go to the beginning, rewind, fast forward, and go to the end. If I right click on the screen, I've also got all those controls as well. So if you want to see everything in full screen, all you have to do is either right click and go down to full screen, which is the keyboard equivalent of alternate enter. So what I'm going to do is hold down my alternate button on my keyboard, I'm going to hit enter, and now I'm looking at the video in full screen. Now how do I play? Well, I could right click again on the screen, hit play, pause, or I could hit the space bar on my keyboard. Okay, so I'm going to hit the space bar on my keyboard because I want you guys to use keyboard shortcuts. It makes life a whole lot easier. We're going to explore different ways to maximize the performance of our computer. Okay, so that's the next section, so I'm not going to give it away just yet. But what if we wanted to fast forward or rewind? Well, again, right click on the desktop. You can fast forward or rewind going page up or page down. So let me push the page down key on my computer, and now I'm fast forwarding through the video. If I want it to go backwards, I'll hold down the page up key, and now I'm going backwards. It's kind of hard to tell, but trust me, we are going forward and backwards. Let me hit the escape button one more time to get out of full screen mode. There's my slider. That allows me to slide through the video at a very high rate of speed. Down the bottom right is the pause indication if I hit the space bar. And then one last thing, it changes to playing. And then over here is the elapsed time and the total time of this video. This video is 20 minutes and 7 seconds long. Over here in the upper right corner I've got a speaker icon. If I click on it, there's my volume slider, so I can adjust the volume right here without even having to touch my speakers. So again, one more time, if I scrub through this, Sometimes there's a bit of a lag because my DVD drive is trying to spin up the disk so it can access the information. Now if I hit the space bar, it's playing. I'll hit the space bar again. You have to be in pause to fast forward and rewind. I'm fast forwarding. You can see the scrub bar going across. And now I'm rewinding. And there you have it. A very quick overview of using the Camtasia player, which is included on your disk and should play the videos back when you're playing back off the DVD drive. Very quickly, let's take a look at where the Camtasia player is stored on your disk. I will go to my Explorer. I like the Windows Explorer. I've created a shortcut on my desktop. Go to my computer, go to the drive. There's the drive that I'm looking at. Go to Media, Common, Programs, and there's the Camtasia player. And that is the player. If I click on that, there's the player. And basically all this is a media player, just like your Windows media player or your QuickTime player or your Real player. And there's my Real player over there. I can go to a video on my disk, go to Media, My Studio 9, Video, and there we go. There's the computer setup video, and now it's playing in the Camtasia player. Well, welcome to if you have a preference to use, say, the Real player, we'll go to Real player, we'll go to File, Open, we'll go to Browse, and let's see, My Computer, the disk that we are playing off of, Media, My Studio 9, Video, and there it is, Computer Setup. There's the video playing back in Real Player. Well, welcome to the introduction of our training video. I will bring the volume control down. If I wanted to go full screen, when I mouse over, I get these little buttons in the upper left. One size, double size, and full screen. And there's the full screen. Now, it isn't as good quality as the Camtasia player, so I highly recommend using Camtasia player for playing back all the videos on your disk. And if you're using the menu and you click on a video, it's automatically going to open up in the Camtasia player, and then you can either use your keyboard shortcuts or the buttons. But again, if you want to see everything without having to scroll the bars, so welcome to our alternate, overview enter, here of, and there you go. Two more points I want to make while we're looking at our Camtasia player, playing back one of the training videos here, is that A, this is a media player, so if you miss something, you can always rewind and play it again. So you shouldn't have too much trouble in soaking in all the information here. And then another tip I want to point out to you is the alternate tab button. And what that does is it allows you to have multiple programs open and then just switch between them. If I hold down my alternate button and hit the tab button, on my screen pops up this little window, and now you can see right now it's showing this button here, which is the live play control, which is my audio recorder. There is the Camtasia recorder recording the screen capture as I speak. And this is what I wanted to get to, the Pinnacle Studio, the actual Paris project. If I let go of my alternate button now, it switches over to Pinnacle Studio. So you could be watching your training video. There it is, the Edit Timeline Master.avi in the Camtasia player. Here it is. You could hit the play button, zoom out. And now if I wanted to zoom in, I'll just watch a little bit of the training video. And then if you wanted to practice that, you hold down the alternate button, hit the tab button, switch over to Pinnacle Studio, and then now you're in the actual editing application, and now you can edit and practice what you just learned. So it reinforces what you're learning as you go. Instead of watching everything and then coming back to Pinnacle Studio, you can actually watch sections of the video, the training video right there, by hitting the play button. Just drag to the right. Click and drag to the right. Click and drag to the right. Okay, let's try that. So I'll hit alternate tab, switch over to Pinnacle Studio, click and drag to the right, and look, I get to zoom in on my timeline, which you will see when we get into editing on the timeline. Well, welcome to the introduction of our training video. In this section, we're going to explore different ways to maximize the performance of our computer in preparation for using our computer to edit video, which is a fairly demanding task. So we need to make sure that all our background tasks are turned off. For example, our antivirus software is turned off, screensavers turned off, firewalls, which would also necessitate the need to turn off our internet connection. So let's go ahead and do a couple things to maximize the performance of our computer. The first thing I want to do, and some of these tips are my personal preferences, and I'll try and point those out as I go, and others are fairly necessary, so I'll try and point those out as we go. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on our desktop, and we get the properties down at the bottom here, so I'll left click on that. And this brings up this option, and the first thing I want to point out is over here on the tab across the top here, Settings. My screen is set up in the 1024 by 768 screen resolution size. Now if you're watching this video and your screen is configured to 800 by 600, you've probably got scroll bars on the right and bottom of your computer as well as a play bar going across the top here. If that's the case, you're not going to see the entire screen. So if you would, please switch your screen resolution to 1024 by 768 by doing what I just did, right-clicking on the desktop, choosing Properties, and then opening up this window and coming over here to Settings and changing to 1024 by 768. And then, if you still have those scroll bars and the play bar going across the top, might I suggest that you hold down the alternate button and hit Enter. You could also right-click on this window and choose the option that says Full Screen. And that way you will be looking, in essence, at my screen the way I am seeing it, and we'll both be on the same page, as they say. Now moving right along, let's go back to the themes, and you can see I am running Windows XP. And if you're not running Windows XP, might I invite you to join the 21st century, join the rest of us that are running XP and fairly happy with it. It's a new operating system, it's fairly stable, and when we're dealing with editing video, the more stable our operating system, the easier it's going to be just in overall just to work with our editing software. Like I said, editing video is fairly demanding, so having a stable operating system is quite necessary. Alright, so the first thing here under Themes is I'm going to change from my Windows XP, which has this very thick blue title bar at the top of every window, and I'm going to go back to Classic. Old habits die hard, but that's the way it goes. Now this brings up this example of what it would look like, and we're going to modify that a little bit as we go. But we're going to click on the Desktop tab here, and if we had a picture displayed in here, we would come up to the top of the list and choose None. But choosing that Classic theme has removed the picture and replaced it with this lovely blue desktop. Now we'll move right over to Screensaver. A couple points here. I'm going to turn off my Screensaver because that's a task that runs in the background waiting for me to step away from my computer for a while. And instead I'm going to come down here to my Monitor Power options, and this brings up my power properties, my power schemes. And you can see right now it's set to Home/Office Desktop. And the only option we have here is to turn off the monitor after 15 minutes, which you can change to whatever time you like. Turn off the hard disks, I would suggest never, and system standby, again, never. If you're running on a laptop, you might want to explore these options a little more. However, we'll move over here to Advanced. There's not a whole lot here we want to really do. Always show icon on taskbar. Well, that's adding one more thing to be displayed down here, one more little process. So I would say no. I would leave that unchecked. And then prompt for password when computer resumes from standby. Well, again, unless you're using a laptop, this really doesn't apply. Now down here, when I press the power button on my computer, that's the button on the front of your computer, the physical button, not the keyboard or anything like that, but actually on the front of the computer box. This option, as it's selected now, would force the computer to shut down. Or we could select standby, ask me what to do, or do nothing. Now if you've got kids in the house, you might want to choose the do nothing. That way if they come along while you're out getting some coffee, they won't accidentally shut the computer down and then you lose all your work if you forgot to save recently. So there you go, a couple options there. Hibernate, again, if you're not using a laptop, I wouldn't even consider this. UPS, no, this is not how you choose to receive your packages over the internet. This is an uninterruptible power supply. Say that 3 times fast. Now this is a separate box, kind of like a power strip on the smaller units, or like a half-sized computer on the bigger units. And basically it contains batteries inside that are charged as you plug it in. And then you plug your computer and monitor into the UPS output. And should you have a brownout or a loss of power, this will give you enough operating power to save your work and shut your system down. So I would highly recommend these. UPS, I've seen them for as little as $40 for the power strip type UPS, and the larger ones are in the hundreds. Now they also will oftentimes protect against power surges and spikes, which may save your hard drives and or computer. So $40 well spent in my book. All right, so there we go. There's the power options properties. Explained in massive detail. Now moving right along to the appearance. Now you said, Paul, you did say we were going to get rid of these ugly colors, and yes, indeed we are. And we do that right here by going to the color scheme, the second option down, clicking the arrow. And one of my favorites in the pre-builts is the wheat option. Now, back in the days when I used to have plus on my system, they had a travel option, and that had a really nice muted brown color, which I really enjoyed. Now, while we're here under the effects button, if I click on that, and the second option down, use the following method for smooth edges of screen fonts. You can see I've got clear type selected. Standard is what you would normally have. However, if you go to clear type, some of the websites out there indicate that this will give you a lot more performance. And so, therefore, I have done it. And I actually enjoy the quality of the fonts on my desktop. So there we go. And then, of course, settings allows us to change the screen size of our computer. And we could also change the color depth, but we'll just leave that at 32, the highest, which looks best. And then one last thing, instead of having blue, I prefer black, so I will go here, select black, and I could either hit apply or I could save myself a step and just hit OK. And there it is, there's everything done for me. Moving right along, if I come down to the Start button, this is a preference of mine that I like to change. This is the Windows XP Start menu layout, and I prefer the old classic. So again, I right-click on the Start button, I go to Properties, and here, instead of having the Start menu, I'll go to the classic Start menu. And there it is, an old familiar friend. And then while I'm here, I'll go to the Customize, and if I haven't already done it, I would select Expand Control Panel, and perhaps expand my documents. And what that does is, if we'll move back here, we'll click OK, OK, go to the Start button, go to Settings, go to Control Panel, and instead of clicking on Control Panel and opening up a separate window, this will just open up this pop-up menu box, and then I can select whatever I want. So this is a handy little option. Now while we're talking about the taskbar, you can see it's just sitting here staring me in the face. Now I prefer to gain a little bit more screen real estate by having it hide away when I'm not using it. So again, I'll right-click on the Start button, go to Properties, and then here on the taskbar is probably where we can control different taskbar functions, right? And indeed it is. Auto hide the taskbar. Click on that. And now you can see it's showing me what it will do here. It will actually hide away. And let's see, lock taskbar, that's fine. Keep taskbar on top of other windows, that would be a good idea. Otherwise, if I've got something full screen and I don't have on top selected, then it would come up, but I wouldn't see it. So it's a good idea to keep this on top of other windows. Group similar taskbar buttons. Well, let's see what that does. If I undo that, if I have say 5 or 6 Internet Explorer windows open, this is going to group it into that kind of feature. But if I uncheck that, now those individual Internet Explorers would be spread across the taskbar. I much prefer that. And then Show Quick Launch is this little set of buttons here, and this button right here is the minimize everything on the desktop, which is a real handy thing. So again, if I turn that off, it's gone. If I turn it on, there you go. And you can click and drag certain shortcuts from your desktop right to this quick launch area. I prefer to do that. That's one of mine. So we'll turn these guys all on. So we've got the taskbar hiding, and then down here, show clock. That's always nice to have a clock in front of you. Hide inactive icons. I prefer to leave this unchecked because if I check it, you can see it hides everything, and then you got to click on this button, and it's kind of annoying. There's Paul's preferences for the taskbar. Click OK, and now the taskbar is hiding. When I move my mouse to the bottom of the screen, there it is. Okay, so now that we've minimized our taskbar and it pops up when we need it, that's great. But down here on the taskbar, perhaps you have a whole slew of little icons that you don't necessarily need, and they don't do anything for you. For example, this messenger icon. I can right-click on it and choose Exit, but what I'd like to do is to get rid of it semi-permanently, at least until it shows up again. And to get rid of these unwanted icons on our taskbar, we go to our Start button, and we go to Run, and then we have to type in, and you can see it's already there, but I'll type it again with you. It's msconfig. msconfig. Now if I click OK, it runs this system configuration utility. And what we're looking for is the startup. And over here, there's a couple items, and we can expand this out. You can see there's a Pinnacle Edition. That's another editing software from Pinnacle. It does a drive check. I'll leave that running. Soundman is my sound. But basically what I'm looking for down here, Shuttle Helper, I need that as well. Most of these I need. This is a real schedule For the Real Media Player, it bugs you every once in a while with updates, or would you like to search the internet for updates? I'll turn that off. MS Messages, that's the one we don't want, so we'll click on that. And I think that'll do it. But again, if you've got a bunch of things here that, like for example, QuickTime might be down there, you don't necessarily need those. Again, that gets rid of some of these. We'll click OK. Now it's asking us to restart our system, which we will go ahead and do. So here we are back in my computer once it's restarted, and we get this little system configuration utility you have used, the system config blah blah blah. And would you like to show this? Well, we don't want to see this every time. We know that we've done this, so we'll just say OK. And now you can see that some of those annoying little icons that were there have gone, and some of these are necessary. Now a couple other things we need to do for the Windows users out there. Let's say we wanted to save these as a particular user setting. Perhaps we want to preserve our existing desktop for our kids, and we want to create our own working environment for ourselves. Well, we go to the Start button, and we'd probably want to do this first before we start shutting down everything. We go to the Settings Control Panel, down at the very bottom, User Accounts, and we're going to create a new account. So we'll click on the middle option here, which is Create New Account. And we'll give it a name. We'll call it Studio. We'll say Next. And we want to give this computer administrator access as compared to limited. And you can see for yourself the differences. But computer administrator allows you to install new software within that account. Whereas, let's say you wanted to create an account for your kids where they can't install or delete software, well, then you'd want to use the limited. So there you go. All right, so we'll go ahead and create this account. And it's giving it this lovely little chess piece icon, but I think what we'll do is we'll click on this, and we could create a password so that no one can get in and edit our studio stuff. But we could also change the picture here, and we'll do that. And I'm a bit of an airplane nut, so I'll choose this. But what I could do is browse for pictures from my hard drive. But I'll go ahead and say change picture. There it is, lovely airplane. And there we go. So we're done. We can basically hit home, and there it is. We could log on as that particular user and then make our changes, everything that I've shown you so far and what I'm going to show you next. But we'll just stay where we are because this is where we're working. And the next thing I want to do is I want to right click on my computer. And this brings up yet another option to go to Properties. And now this is going to be a little different. And this is a quick way to get to your system properties. Another way of doing this would be to go to your Start button, go to Settings, Control Panel, System. And then we have that same window. But right click to Properties is a whole lot faster. Couple mouse clicks less. Now you can see I'm using a state-of-the-art 2.4 gigahertz processor with 512 megs of RAM, so I can tell pretty quickly what kind of system I'm on. Now moving right along, I can give the computer a name. I've given mine the lovely name of Ed. And then here's what I want to look at first: the Device Manager and Hardware Profiles. We'll go ahead and click on Hardware Profiles, and you can see currently we are on Profile 1, which is the default. Now what I've done is I've copied that and created a new one called Ed, which shuts down the hardware I'm not using and allows me to just start up the necessary devices for editing and nothing else. So let's go ahead and do this. We'll copy this. We'll give it a new name. We'll call it Studio, since we know exactly what it's for. We'll click OK. And what we could do is we could move this to the top of the list so it would be the first choice. Right after our computer reboots, we would get a DOS type screen, just a black screen with white letters, with a bunch of information including the 3 choices here. And we would choose one using our up and down arrow keys and then hitting enter on our keyboard. Now we've got the option here to say don't start up the computer until I actually select something, or wait 30 seconds and then select the first profile listed. In this case it would be the Ed, but if we want the Studio, we'll use this button here and we'll move Studio to the top. Now we'll click on OK and we'll restart our computer one more time. So as my computer restarts, I choose the Studio option that we just created. And now I will right click on my computer, go to Properties, go to Hardware, the Hardware tab, and come down here to Hardware Profiles, and make sure that I have actually restarted and am running on the Studio hardware configuration or hardware profile. And you can see it says Current next to Studio. So in actual fact, I am in the Studio hardware profile. And now I can go into Device Manager by just left clicking. And now I can turn off the different pieces of hardware that I know I won't be using while I'm in the editing mode. For example, my floppy disk controller, I can expand the tree here, right click on it, and just choose Disable. Disabling this device will cause it to stop functioning. Do you really want to disable it? Well, yes, I do. And it's only disabling it within this hardware profile, the studio hardware profile. If I restarted my computer and chose the normal profile, or profile 1 as it's labeled here, the floppy disk controller would work just fine. So human interface devices, I believe that's my mouse, so we won't disable that. That would be kind of difficult to edit anything. You can see here that all the different components of your computer are listed. For example, the different disk drives here, and you can see I've got a few on this system. And while we're here, I might suggest that you take a look at your device drivers. If I double click here on the Radeon, this is my video card, and I click on driver, you can see that the driver, the software that runs the hardware, was created September of 2003, and this is the most recent version that I know of, and thus this is fine. So with all your hardware, including, say, if you just went out and bought one of those FireWire capture cards, you might want to visit the manufacturer's website and make sure that you actually have the most recent software drivers for that hardware. And if you don't, it's just a download and an install. Fairly easy. So if I scroll down here to my network adapters, the 1394 adapters, net adapters, are my FireWire connectors, my FireWire cards, which I use to connect to my DV camera or what have you. So those are fairly important. However, the Realtek Ethernet NIC card, that's to surf the internet with. On this particular profile, I'll shut that down. I'll just disable it. So basically the red X is saying that there's a problem. There's either a problem with this particular hardware or it's not being used right now. And you can see I've also turned off all the audio and video codecs for my video card because I don't want those running in the background. And you can see here the SCSI RAID controllers. I don't actually have SCSI drives or RAIDs. I just have these ATA Ultra 100 controller cards that allow me to get high-speed throughput on my hard drives. And we'll talk more about this in this section where we actually talk about souping up your computer with more RAM and such. So there we go. I think we've disabled everything that we need to. We can just go ahead and close there. And then while we're here, let's go to the Advanced tab. And this is a fairly important setting. Under Performance, if we go to Settings, you can see that right now my system is set up for Adjust for Best Appearance. When I'm editing video, I'm really not too concerned what my computer is looking like as far as smoothly fading on menus and such. So I'm just going to select the Adjust for Best Performance tab right here. And you can see all these different options for lovely looking windows have been turned off, and that's going to give me more performance for my actual video editing. We go ahead and select OK, and then I think that's pretty much all we need to look at here. A few last things here. Remote. If we click on the Remote tab, allow remote assistance invitation to be sent from this computer. You know what, with all the problems with the internet these days, I would make sure these are unchecked. And then automatic updates. Download the updates automatically and notify me when they are ready to be installed. Well, no thank you. I'd rather turn this off. And when I feel it's necessary, maybe on a semi-monthly basis to go check for updates, I'll do it myself by going to the Microsoft website. So that's pretty much it on this option. We'll go ahead and choose OK. We just need to mention that you have all your antivirus software turned off. And then if we really wanted to get crazy, we could hold down Control, Alternate, and hit Delete on our keyboard. And this brings up the Windows Task Manager. And you can see that there's a bunch of different things running in the background. My SoundMan, that's my sound software. And pretty much all these need to be running. But you could come in here if you really wanted to and start closing down items that are running in the background and give your system more resources. You can see if I click here on memory usage, there's quite a few large programs running here. And I could turn those off, but I think I'll just leave these alone and see how it goes when I start up Studio. So that's pretty much the next step. And by the way, I did mention that we could add little shortcuts down here. If I click, drag, and drop my Studio icon here, it adds a little shortcut there as well as on my desktop. If I wanted to get rid of that, I just right-click and choose Delete. It doesn't actually delete the program. It just deletes the shortcut, and this is a shortcut that actually kickstarts the executable file on my hard drive, and away we go. So let's go ahead and finish this section off and move right along into editing.